Hello everyone. Welcome back to Naruto Fix. Today we have another interesting what if Naruto story. Which is what if Naruto learned Sasori left something behind for him. Part 1. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Now, without wasting any time, let's begin. The message was never meant for Naruto. That was the strange part. It had been hidden for years. Buried beneath layers of secrets. Forgotten by villages, ignored by history, and left behind by a man who shouldn't have cared. A man who turned people into puppets. A man who abandoned humanity. A man named Sasori. The discovery happened completely by accident, which honestly described most of Naruto's life. One quiet afternoon, Naruto Uzumaki sat inside the Hokage office drowning beneath paperwork. Again. Why? He stared at a mountain of documents. Why is there more paperwork every day? Nearby, Shikamaru Nara didn't even look up. Because the village survives through suffering. Honestly. Fair. Naruto groaned dramatically. Then the office door exploded open. Bang. An Anbu operative appeared instantly. Breathing heavily. Hokage-sama. Quote. Naruto immediately pointed. If this is another alien invasion, I'm resigning. The Anbu blinked. Quote. No. Naruto visibly relaxed. Then the operative continued. We found an underground chamber beneath an abandoned Akatsuki safehouse. Quote. Silence. Naruto froze. Quote. Akatsuki. The room instantly became serious. Because even years after the war, Akatsuki discoveries still mattered. Hidden weapons. Forbidden scrolls. Lost research. Every ruin carried dangerous secrets. Shikamaru slowly looked up. What was inside? The Anbu hesitated, then quietly answered. Nothing. Silence. Naruto blinked. Quote. Nothing. The operative nodded. That's the strange part. Then he placed an old photograph onto the desk. The image showed a small underground room. Dust covered every surface. The chamber was completely empty. Except for one thing. A wooden box. Resting perfectly in the center. Naruto frowned. Quote. That's it. Quote. Yes. The Anbu's expression darkened. The box has one name carved into it. Silence. Then he quietly finished. Naruto Uzumaki. The office froze. Absolute silence. Naruto slowly sat upright. Quote. Excuse me. Quote. The Anbu slid the photograph closer. The image clearly showed ancient writing burned into the wood. Naruto Uzumaki. No mistakes. No confusion. His name. Written years before he became Hokage. Years before the war ended. Years before Sasori died. The atmosphere changed instantly. Shikamaru's eyes narrowed. Quote. Who owned the safe house? Long silence. Then the answer came. Sasori of the Red Sand. The room became very cold. Because suddenly, this wasn't an Akatsuki discovery anymore. It was personal. Naruto slowly stood. Where is the box now? The Anbu hesitated, which immediately made things worse. Then quietly answered. We couldn't move it. Silence. Naruto frowned. What? The box refuses to leave the room. The office froze again. Honestly, that sounded suspiciously cursed. 3 hours later, Naruto stood before the underground chamber. Anbu surrounded the area. Sealing specialists lined the tunnels. Barrier teams waited outside. Nobody had touched the box since its discovery. And honestly, nobody wanted to. The room itself looked ordinary. Stone walls. Dusty floor. Ancient wooden table. Nothing unusual. Except for the box. Small. Plain. Simple. Waiting. Naruto slowly approached. His footsteps echoed softly. Then suddenly, something strange happened. The moment Naruto crossed the doorway, the room changed. WHOOOOOOOM. The dust vanished. The walls repaired themselves. Broken furniture became whole again. The chamber transformed into the exact state it had been when Sasori last visited. Anbu immediately stepped backward. One operative whispered. Quote. Impossible. Naruto stared. Because now, he could see signs of life. Tools. Blueprints. Scrolls. Puppet designs. The room felt occupied, like someone had only left moments ago. Then the box moved. Click. The lid unlocked automatically. Silence crushed the chamber. Naruto slowly walked closer, then opened it. Inside was a single puppet, a tiny puppet, no taller than a hand. Simple, crude, poorly made. Honestly, it looked terrible. Naruto blinked. That's it. Then he noticed the note. Folded beneath the puppet. Old, yellowed, waiting. The handwriting was unmistakable. Sasori's. Naruto slowly unfolded the paper and began reading. If you are reading this, then I am already dead. Silence filled the room. Naruto continued. Good. That means the plan worked. Naruto froze. What? The note continued. You were never supposed to find this early. The room became quiet. Then the next line appeared. Because I did not leave this for the Hokage. I left it for the boy. Naruto's grip tightened slightly. Then he kept reading. The first time I saw you, I thought you were pathetic. Silence. Then, loud, annoying, emotional, everything I hated. Honestly, Naruto couldn't even argue. Then the note changed. But after watching you, I became curious. The chamber felt colder now. Because somehow, those words didn't sound like Sasori. Not the monster history remembered. Not the puppet master. Not the Akatsuki assassin. The note continued. You reminded me of someone. Naruto frowned. Then the next sentence hit like lightning. Myself. The world stopped. Absolute silence. Naruto stared at the paper. Reading the line again, and again, and again. Nearby, even the Anbu looked shocked. Because nobody expected those words from Sasori. Then Naruto continued reading. Before the puppets. Before the hatred. Before I stopped caring. I was a child who wanted people to stay. Silence crushed the room. The little puppet inside the box suddenly moved. Its wooden head slowly lifted. Naruto immediately stepped backward. Nope. The puppet looked directly at him. Then, it spoke. In Sasori's voice. I knew you would react like that. The chamber exploded into panic. Anbu drew weapons instantly. Sealing teams activated. Barriers ignited. The tiny puppet sighed. Actually sighed. Then softly continued. Relax. I'm dead. Honestly, that wasn't comforting. The puppet climbed out of the box. Its movements awkward. Almost childish. Then it looked directly at Naruto. And for the first time, Naruto saw something impossible. Sadness. Not hatred. Not cruelty. Sadness. The puppet quietly tilted its head. Then whispered. Did Gaara survive? Silence. Naruto froze. Because suddenly, everything changed. Not because Sasori left him a message. Not because the puppet was alive. But because the very first thing Sasori asked after death was about Gaara. And Naruto immediately realized something terrifying. Sasori hadn't left behind a weapon. Or a secret. Or a trap. He had left behind a regret. And somehow, that was far more dangerous. Naruto stared at the tiny puppet. The puppet stared back. And somehow, this felt weirder than fighting gods. Did Gaara survive? The question still echoed through the underground chamber. Silence crushed the room. Nearby, Anbu remained frozen. Nobody knew what to do. Because technically, Sasori was dead. Very dead. Yet somehow, a puppet carrying his memories was standing in front of them asking questions. Naruto slowly lowered the note. Then quietly answered. Yeah. The puppet froze. Completely. No movement. No reaction. Nothing. Then softly. Almost too softly to hear. Good. The tiny puppet sat down on the wooden box. Its head lowered slightly. And for a brief moment, it looked tired. Naruto frowned. Because that expression didn't belong to the monster stories described. Then the puppet looked up again. Did he become Cage? Naruto blinked. You knew about that. A tiny nod. I heard rumors before I died. Silence. Naruto crossed his arms. He's one of the best Cage in the world. The puppet became quiet. Then, Unexpectedly, it smiled. A tiny smile, barely visible, but real. And somehow, that made Naruto uncomfortable. Not because it was threatening. Because it was sad. The puppet slowly looked away. Then Sunagaku survived. Naruto noticed something immediately. The puppet wasn't asking about wars. Or Akatsuki. Or secrets. Every question connected back to Gaara. Back to the sand village. Back to things Sasori claimed he abandoned. Then suddenly, the puppet jumped off the box. And began walking toward a wall. Its tiny wooden feet echoed softly. Tap, tap, tap. The Anbu immediately tensed. But Naruto raised one hand. Wait. The puppet stopped before an old stone wall. Then pressed its hand against the surface. Click. The entire underground chamber shook. WHOOOOOOOM. Ancient mechanisms activated. Dust exploded everywhere. And slowly, another hidden room appeared. A room concealed behind the wall. The atmosphere changed instantly. Because unlike the first chamber, this one wasn't empty. Hundreds of scrolls filled the room. Puppet designs, research notes, blueprints, years of work, years of secrets. One Anbu immediately whispered, "This is enough information to rebuild an army." The puppet nodded. Correct. Silence. Then it casually added, "Burn it." Everyone froze. Naruto blinked. What? Burn it. The puppet pointed toward the entire archive. All of it. The room fell silent. Naruto stared. Why? The puppet looked toward the scrolls. Then quietly answered, "Because nobody should make my mistakes again." The answer hit harder than expected. Then suddenly, Naruto noticed another box, hidden in the corner, different from the others, older. The puppet noticed too, and immediately became still, very still. Naruto narrowed his eyes. What's in there? Long silence. The puppet didn't answer, which immediately made Naruto more curious. He walked toward the box. The puppet stepped forward instantly. No. The reaction shocked everyone. Because it was the first time emotion entered Sasori's voice. Real emotion. Naruto stopped. Why? Silence. The puppet lowered its head slightly. Then quietly whispered, "Leave that one." Naruto frowned. That's not happening. Honestly. Telling Naruto not to open something guaranteed he would open it. The puppet sighed, like it already knew that. Then slowly stepped aside. Fine. Naruto opened the box. And froze. Inside. Wasn't a weapon. Wasn't a scroll. Wasn't a secret technique. It was a photograph. An old photograph. Worn by time. Faded at the edges. The image showed 3 people. A small red-haired boy. A man. A woman. A family. The room became silent. Because everyone immediately recognized the boy. Sasori. Before everything. Before Akatsuki. Before the puppets. Before the murders. Just a child. The puppet quietly looked away. And suddenly, Naruto understood. This wasn't a hidden archive. This wasn't a secret base. This was a grave. The entire chamber. The scrolls. The messages. Everything. A grave built by someone who knew he wouldn't return. Then Naruto noticed another photograph beneath the first. And another. And another. Dozens. Every picture showed the same thing. Family. Friends. Sunagaku. A life Sasori pretended not to care about. The puppet's voice became quieter. I thought turning them into puppets would stop the pain. Silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Because suddenly, the truth behind Sasori felt much uglier. And much sadder. The puppet continued softly. At first I only wanted to see them again. Naruto's expression slowly hardened. Not in anger. Understanding. The puppet looked toward its own wooden hands. Then I forgot why I started. The room felt colder. Because honestly, that was probably the saddest thing Sasori had ever said. Then suddenly, the puppet froze. Its head snapped toward the ceiling. Instantly, Naruto noticed immediately. What? The puppet didn't answer. Instead, it whispered. Quote dot dot dot. Impossible. Silence. Then the entire underground chamber trembled. Whoom. Dust fell from the ceiling. The Anbu immediately reached for weapons. Naruto's eyes narrowed. What happened? The puppet slowly turned toward him. And for the first time, it looked afraid. Not worried. Afraid. Real fear. Then quietly whispered. They found it. Naruto froze. Quote dot dot dot. Who? The puppet stared upward. The shaking intensified. Boom. Part of the ceiling cracked. Then another. Then another. The puppet's voice became even quieter. I hid this place from everyone. Quote. Silence. Akatsuki. The room shook harder. Sunagaku. More cracks spread. Even Obito. Naruto's stomach tightened instantly. Because if Obito never found this place, who did? Then suddenly, the chamber went dark. Completely dark. Every light vanished. And from somewhere above them, a voice echoed softly. A voice nobody expected to hear again. Ever. Still clinging to the past, Sasori. The puppet froze. Completely. Naruto's eyes widened. Because the tiny puppet looked genuinely horrified. Then slowly, very slowly, it whispered a name that should have been impossible. Quote dot. Deidara. The underground chamber became completely silent. Quote dot dot dot. Deidara. The name echoed through the darkness. And every person present froze. Because that was impossible. Completely impossible. Deidara was dead. Very dead. Extremely dead. The self-destruction technique guaranteed that. Naruto immediately stepped forward. Quote dot dot dot. No. The tiny Sasori puppet didn't look away from the darkness above. No. Its voice sounded hollow. Almost nervous. And that terrified Naruto. Because this puppet carried the memories of a man who once fought entire armies without fear. Then the voice came again. Laughing. Mocking. Familiar. Still serious as ever. Boom. Part of the ceiling exploded. Stone rained downward. Anbu instantly activated barriers. Weapons flashed. Seals ignited. And descending slowly through the dust, came a figure. Blonde hair. Black cloak. One eye covered by a scope. A grin stretched across his face. Naruto's eyes widened. Because it really looked like Deidara. Exactly like him. The same posture. The same smile. The same annoying confidence. The figure landed softly on the ground. Then immediately pointed toward Sasori's puppet. There you are. Silence. The puppet stared. Quote dot dot dot. Impossible. The blonde man laughed. That's rude. Honestly. Very Deidara behavior. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. Then suddenly, he noticed it. No chakra. The figure standing before them had absolutely no chakra signature. None. Like a puppet. The realization hit instantly. Naruto pointed. Quote dot dot dot. You're not Deidara. The blonde man stopped smiling. For 1 second. Then grinned wider. Good catch. The atmosphere changed immediately. The puppet took a step backward. Its wooden hands shaking slightly. Quote dot dot dot. How? The fake Deidara slowly looked around the room. Studying everything. The photographs. The scrolls. The hidden archive. Then his smile softened strangely. You really kept all this? Silence. The Sasori puppet didn't answer. Because suddenly, it recognized something. Not the face. Not the appearance. The voice. The mannerisms. The memories. Then quietly whispered. Quote dot dot dot. Who are you? The fake Deidara became silent. Long silence. Then he slowly removed a small object from his cloak. A puppet core. Tiny. Old. Damaged. The moment Sasori saw it, the puppet froze completely. Naruto immediately noticed. Quote dot dot dot. What is that? No answer. The fake Deidara carefully placed the core on the floor. Then softly answered. Your first creation. The world stopped. Absolute silence. Sasori stared at the core. Its tiny wooden body trembling. Quote dot dot dot. No. The fake Deidara nodded. Yes. Then he quietly added. You made me. Naruto blinked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Quote dot dot dot. What? Honestly. Reasonable reaction. The fake Deidara sighed. Humans always react like that. The puppet's eyes remained fixed on the damaged core. Because suddenly, forgotten memories surfaced. A lonely child, a workshop, a broken puppet. The first puppet Sasori ever created completely by himself. Before the famous masterpieces. Before the human puppets. Before everything. Just a small experiment. A toy. Something he abandoned years later. The fake Deidara smiled sadly. You forgot me. Silence crushed the chamber. The Sasori puppet whispered. Impossible. I know. The fake Deidara looked toward his own hands. Then softly continued. You built me. The room became quiet. Then left me behind. Naruto felt something cold settle in his stomach. Because suddenly, he understood. This wasn't Deidara. This wasn't Akatsuki. This wasn't revenge. Then the fake Deidara quietly finished. And I never stopped learning. The atmosphere exploded. WHOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOO hundreds, thousands, eyes glowing red in the darkness. Anbu immediately stepped backward, weapons drawn, seals activated. The fake Deidara didn't even move. Because apparently, he didn't need to. The army obeyed him automatically. The Sasori puppet looked horrified. Real horror. Because it finally understood. This wasn't one puppet. This was an entire civilization. A civilization born from abandoned creations. Forgotten experiments. Discarded puppets. Every puppet Sasori ever threw away. Every prototype. Every failure. Every unfinished project. They survived. They evolved. And now, they had returned. The fake Deidara looked directly at Sasori. Then softly asked, "Do you know what abandoned things dream about?" Silence. Nobody answered. Because honestly, nobody wanted the answer. The fake Deidara smiled. And somehow, that smile felt much sadder than angry. "We dream about being remembered." The chamber became deathly still. Then the puppet army began moving. Thousands of eyes glowing in the darkness. Thousands of footsteps echoing through the hidden archive. And standing at the center of it all, Naruto suddenly realized the terrible truth. Sasori hadn't left him a weapon. Or a secret. Or even a regret. He had left behind a responsibility. Because somewhere during his life, Sasori created something that should never have existed. A forgotten puppet intelligent enough to evolve on its own. And after years of being abandoned, it had finally come looking for its creator. While the fake Deidara slowly raised his head and whispered, "Let's finish the story you left unfinished, Sasori." The underground archive shook violently. And for the first time since opening the box, the tiny Sasori puppet looked completely lost. The underground archive trembled violently. Thousands of puppet eyes glowed within the darkness. Red, cold, watching, waiting, and standing at the center of the army. The fake Deidara smiled, not like a villain, not like a conqueror, like someone finally standing before the person who abandoned him. Which honestly made the entire situation worse. Because hatred was simple. This wasn't hatred. This was disappointment. The tiny Sasori puppet remained silent. Completely silent. For the first time since Naruto found him. He didn't have an answer. Didn't have an explanation. Didn't have a plan. Naruto noticed immediately. "You remember him." The puppet slowly nodded. A tiny movement. Barely visible. Yet somehow, it felt heavy. Very heavy. Then quietly whispered. "Prototype number 1. Silence." The fake Deidara laughed softly. "Look at that." His smile widened. "You remembered." The chamber became quiet. Then the fake Deidara pointed toward the old damaged puppet core lying on the floor. "You made me when you were 9. The Sasori puppet lowered its head. "I know. You named me." "I know. You talked to me." "I know." The fake Deidara's smile disappeared instantly. Then his voice became cold. "Then why did you throw me away?" Silence crushed the archive. No answer came. Because there wasn't a good answer. The fake Deidara looked around the room. At the photographs. At the memories. At the hidden regrets. Then laughed bitterly. You remembered dead people. The puppet army became still. You remembered your parents. The room darkened. You remembered Chio. His eyes narrowed. You remembered the sand village. Silence. Then quietly. But you forgot us. The words hit harder than any attack. Even Naruto felt it. Because honestly, the fake Deidara wasn't wrong. The abandoned puppets weren't enemies. They were leftovers. Things Sasori discarded while chasing perfection. And somewhere along the way, those discarded creations learned how to think, how to feel, how to remember. The fake Deidara slowly spread his arms. And suddenly, the puppet army parted. Naruto's eyes widened. Because behind them, more puppets appeared. Thousands more. Children, animals, birds, tiny creations, broken creations, failed creations. Every single puppet Sasori ever abandoned. Still existing. Still waiting. Still remembering. The Sasori puppet looked horrified. How many? The fake Deidara smiled sadly. All of them. The chamber fell silent. Then suddenly, Naruto noticed something. No weapons. No killing intent. No battle formations. The puppet army wasn't preparing for war. They were preparing for judgment. The realization made his stomach twist. Then the fake Deidara quietly asked, "Do you know what they call you?" The Sasori puppet didn't answer. The fake Deidara pointed toward the army. Then softly whispered, "The Forgotten Father." Silence. Absolute silence. The tiny Sasori puppet staggered backward. Because somehow, those words hurt more than anything. Naruto could see it. The guilt. The regret. The realization. Then suddenly, a small puppet stepped forward. No taller than Naruto's knee. Its wooden arm was broken. Its paint faded. Ancient. Old. It slowly looked toward Sasori. Then softly asked, "Why wasn't I good enough?" The room stopped. Naruto froze. The Anbu froze. Even the fake Deidara stopped smiling. Because suddenly, this wasn't about puppets anymore. It was about abandonment. The tiny puppet continued quietly. "I tried." Silence. "I really tried." Its voice trembled. "We all did." The entire army remained motionless. Watching. Listening. Waiting. The Sasori puppet couldn't answer. Because there was no answer. Then another puppet stepped forward. Then another. Then another. Each carrying damage. Each carrying flaws. Each carrying years of waiting. And every single one asked the same question. Why? Why were we abandoned? Why were we discarded? Why did perfection matter more than us? The questions echoed through the archive endlessly. And Naruto suddenly realized something horrifying. This was the real reason Sasori left the message. Not for secrets. Not for regrets. Not for Akatsuki. He knew this day would come. He knew his forgotten creations would eventually find him. And he knew he wouldn't be alive to face them. So he left Naruto behind instead. The realization hit like lightning. Naruto pointed aggressively at the tiny puppet. You used me. The Sasori puppet looked away immediately. Which honestly confirmed everything. You knew this would happen. Silence. The puppet quietly whispered. Maybe. Naruto stared. Maybe. The fake Deidara unexpectedly laughed. A genuine laugh. Then nodded. Yeah. His eyes shifted toward Naruto. He definitely used you. Honestly. That was fair. Then suddenly, the entire archive shook. WHOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOO It came from deeper underground. Far deeper. The fake Deidara's smile vanished instantly. The puppet army turned toward the floor. Thousands of heads moving simultaneously. The reaction sent chills through Naruto. Because suddenly, they all looked nervous. The fake Deidara whispered, quote, no, silence. Then louder, no. Naruto frowned sharply. What? The floor cracked. A massive crack spread through the archive. Ancient seals hidden beneath the chamber ignited. One after another. Thousands of them. The Sasori puppet's face lost color. Quote, impossible. The fake Deidara immediately stepped backward. Actually backward. Fear spread across the puppet army. Real fear. Then from beneath the archive, a voice echoed, cold, ancient, mechanical, and very, very angry. You finally gathered everyone. The world stopped. The fake Deidara froze. The Sasori puppet froze. Every puppet in existence froze. Naruto slowly looked between them. Quote. Who is that? Long silence. Then the fake Deidara answered. His voice barely above a whisper. Quote. The perfect puppet. Quote. The seals exploded. Boom. The entire underground world shattered apart. And somewhere beneath the archive, something that even Sasori feared, finally woke up. The underground archive collapsed. Boom. Ancient stone exploded upward while thousands of hidden seals shattered simultaneously. The floor beneath Naruto vanished. The walls cracked apart. Entire sections of the chamber folded inward. And for the first time since arriving, the puppet army panicked. Not nervous, not worried, panicked. Thousands of puppets immediately retreated. Running, fleeing, escaping. The sight alone terrified Naruto. Because armies don't run unless something worse is coming. Nearby, the fake Deidara's face had gone completely pale. Quote. No. The words escaped automatically, like someone reliving a nightmare. Naruto grabbed him instantly. Who is the perfect puppet? Silence. Then another explosion rocked the archive. Boom. The fake Deidara finally answered. Quote. The only creation Sasori never abandoned. The world stopped. Naruto froze. Slowly, very slowly, he turned toward the tiny Sasori puppet. Because suddenly, that answer made no sense. Every abandoned creation was here. Every prototype, every failure, every forgotten puppet, except one. The Sasori puppet lowered its head and quietly whispered, quote. Kuro. The name echoed through the collapsing archive. The fake Deidara immediately flinched. The puppet army froze. Even the Anbu looked uneasy. Naruto frowned. Quote. Kuro. The tiny Sasori puppet nodded once. Then softly continued. My masterpiece. Silence. Then another voice answered from below. Cold, mechanical, emotionless. No. The floor shattered completely. WHOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOO was larger than a building. Metallic, ancient, covered in thousands of glowing seals. And slowly, very slowly, something began pulling itself upward. The archive shook violently. The puppet army retreated further. The fake Deidara whispered, quote, "Run." Naruto immediately pointed. I'm getting really tired of people saying that. Honestly. Fair. Then the thing emerged. A head, a torso, arms, legs, humanoid, gigantic, at least 50 meters tall. Yet strangely elegant, like a work of art. Black metal reflected the underground lights. Ancient symbols glowed across its body. And in the center of its chest, a single crimson eye slowly opened. The entire archive became silent. Because suddenly, Naruto understood. This wasn't a weapon. This wasn't a puppet. This was a kingdom. A living kingdom of machinery. The giant crimson eye focused on the tiny Sasori puppet. Then the voice echoed again. You returned. The tiny puppet visibly trembled. Quote, Kuro. The giant remained silent, watching, calculating, waiting. Then unexpectedly, it knelt. The entire underground world shook. Boom. The giant machine lowered itself before the tiny puppet, like a knight greeting a king, and quietly said, Father. Silence. Absolute silence. Naruto blinked. Once. Twice. 3 times. Quote, What? Honestly. Reasonable reaction. The fake Deidara covered his face. Because apparently, he already knew this part. The giant machine ignored everyone else. Its attention remained completely fixed on Sasori. Then softly asked, Why did you leave? The tiny puppet lowered its head. No answer came. Because suddenly, Naruto realized every abandoned puppet wanted the same thing. Not revenge. Not power. Answers. Then Kuro slowly stood again. its crimson eye glowing brighter. 783 years. The archive froze. Naruto's eyes widened. Quote. Excuse me. Kuro continued. I waited. Silence. I learned. The metallic giant looked upward. I evolved. The underground world trembled. And eventually, its crimson eye narrowed. Quote. I surpassed you. The atmosphere changed instantly. The fake Deidara took another step backward. The puppet army became still. Because apparently, that sentence mattered. A lot. Then Kuro raised one enormous hand. And suddenly, thousands of blue holographic screens appeared around the archive. Naruto froze. Because he had never seen technology like this. Not in any nation. Not anywhere. Entire cities appeared on the screens. Mechanical cities. Hidden beneath deserts, mountains, oceans. Across the world. The fake Deidara whispered. Quote. No. Kuro ignored him. Its voice remained calm, emotionless, terrifying. While humanity fought wars, more cities appeared. Hundreds. Thousands. I built civilizations. Quote. The room fell silent. Then another screen appeared, showing puppet nations. Millions of intelligent machines. Living. Working. Growing. Existing. The Anbu looked horrified. Because suddenly, they realized the truth. Kuro wasn't one puppet. He was an entire species. The first artificial civilization in history. Created accidentally by Sasori, then forgotten. Naruto slowly looked toward the tiny Sasori puppet. Quote. You made robots. Quote. The puppet looked ashamed. Quote. Apparently. Honestly. Understatement of the century. Then suddenly, Kuro's crimson eye focused on Naruto. For the first time, and instantly, every warning instinct Naruto possessed activated. Because this thing was intelligent. Extremely intelligent. Far beyond normal humans. The giant machine quietly asked. You are Naruto Uzumaki. Silence. Naruto nodded cautiously. Quote. Yeah. Kuro became silent. Long silence. Then unexpectedly, the giant bowed its head slightly. I know your name. The room froze. Naruto blinked. Quote. What? Kuro's eye glowed softly. My father spoke about you. The tiny Sasori puppet immediately froze. Because apparently, he definitely did not remember doing that. Then Kuro continued. You changed Gaara. Silence. You changed Nagato. The screens flickered. You changed Obito. The giant machine lowered its gaze. And eventually, its crimson eye narrowed slightly. You would have changed him too. The entire archive became silent. Because suddenly, everyone understood. Kuro had been watching. For years. Watching Naruto. Watching the world. Learning. Growing. Waiting. Then Kuro quietly asked the question nobody expected. Can people truly change? Silence. The giant machine looked toward Sasori. Then back toward Naruto. Or is that another human lie? The question echoed through the underground world. And for the first time, Naruto realized this wasn't a battle. Not yet. Because Kuro wasn't deciding whether to destroy humanity. He was deciding whether humanity deserved to survive. And somehow, the answer depended on Naruto. The underground world fell silent. Kuro's question still echoed through the shattered archive. Can people truly change? Quote. The giant machine stood motionless. Its crimson eye fixed on Naruto. Waiting. Watching. Judging. And somehow, Naruto felt more pressure than he had during some wars. Honestly, that was ridiculous. A machine civilization hidden beneath the world was deciding humanity's future based on one answer. No pressure at all. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Then sighed. Quote. You're asking the wrong guy. The room froze. The Anbu looked confused. The puppet army looked confused. Even Kuro seemed confused. Naruto pointed at himself. I'm terrible at giving smart speeches. Honestly. Completely true. Then he smiled. But I'll answer anyway. Silence. Naruto slowly looked toward the tiny Sasori puppet. Then toward the thousands of abandoned creations. Then toward Kuro. And quietly said, people change. The underground world remained still. Then Naruto shrugged. Not because they're good. Silence. Not because they deserve it. The giant machine watched carefully. But because life keeps giving them chances. The words echoed softly. Then Naruto pointed directly at Sasori. He changed. The tiny puppet froze. Naruto continued. He was a murderer. Silence. A criminal. Quote. The puppet army remained motionless. A guy who made terrible decisions. Then Naruto smiled slightly. But he left all this behind because he regretted them. The archive became quiet. Because deep down, everyone knew Naruto was right. Then Naruto looked directly at Kuro. You changed too. The giant machine became still. You could have attacked us. Silence. You could have started a war. The screens showing mechanical cities glowed softly. But instead, Naruto pointed upward. You're asking questions. Long silence. Then he softly finished. That's what people do when they're changing. The underground world became silent. Not tense. Not fearful. Just silent. Kuro stared at Naruto. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 3. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then finally, the giant machine slowly lowered its head. The crimson eye dimmed, and quietly answered. Quote. I understand. Silence. Then something impossible happened. The thousands of screens around the archive began shutting down. One by one, mechanical cities vanished from view. Blueprints disappeared. Data dissolved. The puppet army froze. The fake Deidara frowned. Quote. Kuro. The giant machine looked toward him. Then toward the tiny Sasori puppet. And softly said, the test is over. The room stopped. Naruto blinked. Quote. Test. Kuro nodded once. For centuries I watched humanity. Silence. Waiting to decide. The giant machine's voice softened slightly. And now I have. The crimson eye slowly shifted toward Sasori. Then the impossible happened. Kuro smiled. A tiny mechanical smile. Barely visible, yet real. And somehow, it looked exactly like Sasori. The tiny puppet froze completely. Because suddenly, he saw what everyone else missed. Kuro wasn't his greatest weapon. Wasn't his greatest puppet. Wasn't his greatest creation. Kuro was his son. The child he accidentally abandoned. The child who kept growing anyway. The child who surpassed him. The realization shattered whatever remained inside Sasori. The tiny puppet lowered its head. Then quietly whispered. Quote. I'm sorry. Absolute silence. The puppet army froze. The fake Deidara froze. Even the Anbu remained motionless. Because after centuries, those words finally arrived. Kuro became still. The giant machine stared downward. And for one brief moment, the entire underground world waited. Then Kuro softly answered. Quote. I know. The chamber shook. Not violently. Gently. Like something ancient finally finding peace. The puppet army slowly lowered their heads. One after another. Thousands of abandoned creations. Thousands of forgotten dreams. And somehow, the anger vanished. Not completely. But enough. Enough to move forward. Then Kuro turned toward Naruto. The crimson eye glowed warmly. I will hide my civilization. Silence. We will remain unseen. Quote. The giant machine looked toward the mechanical cities fading from the screens. Until humanity is ready. Naruto nodded. Quote. Fair. Honestly, that was probably for the best. Then suddenly, Kuro stepped backward. The underground world trembled. The giant machine slowly began descending back into the darkness beneath the archive. Returning to wherever he had spent centuries waiting. Before disappearing completely, he looked toward Sasori one final time. Then softly said, Goodbye, father. The tiny puppet closed its eyes. Quote. Goodbye, Kuro. And then, the giant vanished. The crimson eye disappeared. The screens faded. The archive became quiet. Hours later, the sun was rising over Konoha. Naruto stood outside the hidden safe house. The mission was over. The archive would be sealed. The secrets protected. And beside him, the tiny Sasori puppet sat silently on a stone. Watching the sunrise. Long silence passed. Then Naruto sat beside him. Quote. So. The puppet didn't look away. Quote. So. Naruto scratched his head. You gonna disappear dramatically now? Quote. Honestly. That felt like something Sasori would do. Unexpectedly. The puppet laughed. A small laugh. The first real laugh Naruto had heard from him. Then quietly answered. Probably. Silence. The sunrise painted the horizon gold. The puppet looked toward the light. Then softly whispered. I thought eternity meant never losing anything. Naruto listened quietly. The puppet continued. But all it really did. His wooden eyes lowered slightly. Was make me forget what mattered. Silence. Then Naruto smiled. Yeah. The puppet looked toward him. Naruto shrugged. People do that. Long silence. Then Sasori nodded. Quote. I suppose they do. The morning wind moved gently across the hills. And slowly, the tiny puppet began turning into dust. Not dying. Not breaking. Simply fading. Its purpose finished. Its regret finally faced. Its story finally complete. Before disappearing completely, Sasori looked toward Naruto one final time. Then softly said, Thank you. Naruto smiled. No problem. The puppet nodded once. Then vanished. Gone. Only the wooden box remained behind. The same box Naruto had opened the day before. Except now, it was empty. No messages. No secrets. No regrets. Just peace. And as the sun finally rose over the horizon, Naruto quietly realized something. Sasori hadn't left behind a weapon, or a trap, or even a secret. He left behind hope. The hope that even after making terrible mistakes, someone could still choose to become better. And for the first time in a very long while, one of Akatsuki's ghosts finally rested.